earlier Mr. McKinnon said that he wants to work with opposition parties and is inviting opposition parties to work with his government. But at the same time said this is not going to be like negotiations of the past where you can sort of trade something. How are you going to manage that? And what is your red line in terms of support for this government?
Mr. McKinnon might have eventually to knock on Christine's door.
What?
And explain why he says one thing and it's contrary in the same sentence. There will be no negotiation, but we want to collaborate. What does that mean? Obey? Become liberals? Might not happen.
Did someone step on a cat there at the end of that interview? What was that? Jim, did you hear that originally?
Yeah, I think he was kind of making a kind of how can I put it, a skeptical noise.
Oh.
Okay?
I wasn't sure
so it's perhaps a skeptical squeal, if you will.
I see. And who's Christine?
Maybe he's talking about Chrystia Freeland. I don't know. I don't know who Christine is. I do know though the fact that clip is excellent because it shows basically, it's all hearts and flowers today. Welcome back to the house, Mr. Poilievre. Oh, did we miss you? Oh, I'm happy to be back. They're going to be at each other's throats, and it's going to be pretty ugly, simply because Pierre Poilievre knows that the Prime Minister is on probation, and more than usual. Every poll since the general election has shown that the Trump factor, which is basically what got Mark Carney and the Liberals reelected to a fourth term in Ottawa, is fading, and it's fading fast. And in fact, if you pay attention to what's going on south of the border, it seems to be fading exponentially. Who knows? As I've always said, I'm not really sure if Trump's going to finish his term. But all that said, when you and you know what, I heard you talking earlier. It is a big deal. $100 billion deficit is a big deal, but it's not the kind of thing that most people think about. Indeed, I respectfully submit that across this great country of ours, Aaron, most men and women who come home after a hard day at work, sit down across from each other at the supper table, they don't go, hey, gee, did you hear what happened in question period today? A lot of that stuff just doesn't register. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Mark Carney is under tremendous pressure to produce results. He seems to have tried to check off all the boxes, defense spending, helping out certainly the steel and aluminum industries that have been targeted by Trump's tariffs. That said, there's still a lot in this country that doesn't work, a lot of basic stuff in this country that doesn't work at the federal level. And I'll mention it again, the entire idea that the Canadian Revenue Agency is basically left the phone off the hook because there's no one there to pick up the phone, I think is indicative of what's going on in the civil service. But all these things are converging at once. So, and now to hear our friend Carlton Pearl turn around and say, well, maybe the budget's going to come down in November. That's a very bad sign, Aaron. That basically means they are trying to figure out a way to, how can I put it, find more lipstick to slap on an ever-growing pig that budget is going to be. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. I can't see how he can get out of this. Mark Carney's a banker. You know, he knows how to read a spreadsheet. I don't understand how Canadians can get through this without seeing one way or another some kind of a tax hike, either directly or indirectly, and indeed cuts to services, many of which have already, how can I put it, at the federal level at least, not been, how can I put it, of a sterling quality. So there's a lot of challenges facing this government. I'm not entirely sure now that Donald Trump is becoming is fading back into the closet there, the boogeyman in the closet. He's becoming further and further away, whether that's going to help out the Liberals. And I don't know about you. I haven't seen, how can I put it, the reliable sidekick, the right hand. Mark Carney seems to be riding this trail alone, which is great. Maybe it'll work, but it's going to be very interesting to see in the weeks and months to come how this individual, when he's placed under scrutiny by the press, and how when he starts getting asked questions that maybe he won't be happy to answer, how he's going to deal with that. Justin Trudeau, as we all know, never answered the question. He just took you down one pathway, and the next thing you know, you were 2 miles outside the crab nebula. Yeah. He just got off the topic completely. Mark Carney, I don't think will have that luxury. And whether you like it or not, Pierre Poilievre does have the advantage going into this session. The expectations on Mark Carney are high because he made them high. And if he doesn't live up to those expectations, there are plenty of people, and Pierre Poilievre is simply at the head of the line, but there are plenty of people ready to make sure Canadians know that.
Okay, let me go to a couple of things here. Number one, the Canada Build Homes thing, announcing that, of course, with a number of homes starting off 4 different projects across the country. That's something, Jim, the Conservatives have been pushing for, so he's announcing it. Obviously, it's going to cost money. I think, what is it, $13 billion attached to this?
Yep.
Kind of hard to say you're not doing it fast enough. He's announcing it today. What's the reality here?
Today, but the one theme that is coming up with Pierre Poilievre, and indeed, if you just look at the record, a lot of announcements, not too much in the way of substantial action. It's as simple as that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll see shovels in the ground. By the end of this year. I saw when today's announcement for was about $130 million in federal money for infrastructure for the infamous Blue Bonnets development. I've just rolled my eyes. I'll believe it when I see it. I'm sure the money's there. But it's not just the city of Montreal. It's the entire bureaucracy in this country where things just, if you have a glittering golden idea and you throw it out there and it disappears into this huge vat of molasses, never to be seen again. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Mark Carney is going to be George S. Patton, and he is just going to roll right over everything and get this stuff done. But so far, there's been lots of great clips that you played on this show, and everyone's playing on their show. But right now, in terms of solid results, we haven't seen that much. And as I say, the opposition is going to jump on that with both feet.
By the way, the one other thing I kind of want to bring up is this idea now, as he rolls out this plan. And they showed some of these are modular homes, I think some of them, right? They were in the plant that actually manufactures these, which I thought that was a nice touch. But then this idea, Jim, of the civil service. So I thought, I must have been mistaken, that Mark Carney had said, there would be cuts made. I thought Anita Anand actually came out and said that. And then today, I think the position was, no, we're just not going to renew jobs. So in other words, by attrition, we will cut the civil service. And I thought, well, that doesn't sound like much of a plan either.
Well, we had this conversation on Friday when we had the same kind of 6 to 1, half a dozen on the other between the mayoral candidates.
Right.
Are you going to cut jobs? Go in there and say, "Scram, Jones, you're fired," or are you simply going to wait till Jones retires or resigns and simply not replace him? That's the difference. But in the meantime, that payroll is still being handed out. That clicker is still heading upwards, and believe me, down the road. When that deficit reveals itself, and if it is as big as people say it is, we are going to feel it in the end, if only because, as I say, whether it was the city of Montreal or the nation of Canada, just simple debt service is ridiculous, and we pay money for absolutely nothing other than to keep the vig on our loans, to keep the guys from paying over breaking our legs. But the fact is, that's where we are. We have spent money, not just that we don't have. We may have been spending money, Aaron, that we will never have. And it's a very, very dangerous place for a country like Canada to be.
Jim, let me go back to the Blue Bonnet situation. I had Peter Malouf, the mayor of TMR, on because, of course, we had some suburban mayors, him and Mitch Brownstein of Coach St. Luc, Alan D'Souza and St. Laurent, saying, wait a sec, the original deal, and we talked about this before.
Yeah.
What happened to Cavendish? We gave this to you for $1, the provincial government says, with Cavendish being a provision and getting this done. And the city basically has ignored that and said, we'll take the federal money here, the $100 and some odd million, and not even a mention of Cavendish.
Well, that's Projet Montreal ideology, right? They are not going to add thoroughfares for cars. Cavendish is not a bike path. And everyone is saying that it is absolutely essential for that project. And indeed, if this city is going to progress, and maybe, that might be, and I'm sure it will be down the road, at least for some candidates, a real wedge issue for a lot of voters. That, where do you want this city to go? But, this is it. It was clear that, Cavendish was supposed to be a part of the deal. It's simply being ignored by this administration. And in the meantime, and it's a story I think is not getting enough attention, barely got mentioned, but our good friends over at the Quebec Institute of Statistics doing their population, their demographic projections. And I've in the past, you and I have had the conversation. Each year we have a deficit. We lose Montrealers. I always said that Montreal's biggest export is Montrealers. Yeah. Well, now the projection is between now and 2030. That's 5 years from now. Montreal is going to lose 200,000 people. That's about 10% of its overall population. Those are taxpayers. That's development. That's people who go to restaurants, do whatever. And where are they going? Well, of course, they're going to the 450. And there's any number of theories as to why this projection works this way, whether it's immigration levels being reduced, whether it's an economic slowdown. But as far as I'm concerned, that was why I left, and I think I have a lot of company, Aaron. I think a lot of people are simply leaving the island of Montreal because right now, very little in the city of Montreal works for beyond 2 days. And I honest to God think that's it. I think people who would be willing to put money down on a house, no matter what the prices are on the island of Montreal, they're not that much better in the 450. But man, oh man, you look at every single demographic finding, all the numbers are going up on the Couronne, city of Montreal. They're stagnating and are believed now to be on their way headed down. So it's great to talk about Cavendish and 2,000 homes or 20,000 homes. But man, oh man, if we lose 200,000 people in 5 years, we've got much bigger problems than, say, Projet Montréal dogma.
Fair enough. Jim, I want to just bring up one thing. I see the city has just published here the plan. I'm going to read the headline, which says, Montreal Marathon City presents its traffic plan. And my reaction was, they have a plan? But apparently there is a traffic plan for the marathon, which I think is coming up this weekend. You didn't happen to be in the city on the weekend, did you? This past weekend?
I tried. Frank, it sounds like a joke. I try to avoid going into Montreal whenever possible. Okay. But what happened there?
They had the big bike event, right, over the weekend?
Yes, they did. Yeah.
So they closed Park Avenue, part of Mount Royal.
Yeah.
There was absolutely no police presence of any kind. Now, coming home, because we were down out around Jean Talon, coming home trying to get downtown, they made you go across the mountain to try to get to the other side of the city.
There you go.
I love that.
Isn't that funny?
Also, if you don't live here, if you didn't know where you were going, good luck.
Oh, you were screwed. But you know what, Aaron? I honestly God thought you were going to mention the fact, and I'm not making a joke about this because you're talking to a guy now who cycles at least like 2 hours a day. But the cyclist, like the world-class triathlete cyclist, who took a header
and
really had half her face scraped off because of a pothole on the route for this elite bicycling race event. So you know what? Thank you, Montreal. I think we know that if it goes beyond a can of yellow paint and some orange cones, you guys are kind of out of your league when it comes to planning events like this.
Waiting for that story to show up somewhere in the international press. All right, Jim, thank you. Appreciate it.